Welcome to the fourth in a series of presentations on the Urban Competency Framework. This presentation is about how the Urban Competency Framework can be used and provides an introduction to the user guide which accompanies the Urban Competency Framework. These documents were developed by RedR with funding to the International Rescue Committee from ECHO and are part of a wider project for the Global Alliance for Urban Crises entitled Developing the Skills to Meet the Needs of Urban Populations in Crises through the Alliance of Urban Responders. This presentation provides examples of various user groups and uses of the Urban Competency Framework to support those who wish to use the framework and provides an overview of the main content of the user guide. We'll start by looking at who might use the Urban Competency Framework and how it can be used. The Urban Competency Framework, like all competency frameworks, is a tool that can be used to support human resources and learning and development. The Urban Competency Framework is openly available for anyone to use, and we anticipate that the main user groups might be employing organisations, professional institutes, learning providers, and individuals. By employing organisations, we are referring to any type of organisation or consortium that employs or deploys, engages or recruits employees or volunteers to undertake humanitarian action. These organisations might be from the third sector and might include international and national NGOs, faith-based and civil society-based organisations. They might be from the public sector and might include local authorities, and they might be from the private sector. By professional institutes, we are referring to all types of professional or membership bodies that provide assistance and guidance to members and perhaps set professional standards in their field. The term learning providers here refers to all types of organisations or groups that provide learning or training opportunities relevant for those who will be or who are engaged in humanitarian action. This could include, for example, specialised training organisations operating as charities or private companies, learning and development departments of larger organisations, or educational institutes such as universities. Individuals here refers to those who wish to apply the framework to themselves for whatever reason. This might be because they're currently engaging in humanitarian action or because they intend to. In order to explain how the Urban Competency Framework might be used, we've categorised the uses into three main types: assessment and recruitment, competency development, and collaborating with partners. These categories are not rigidly distinct, and they do not neatly map onto the four main user groups which have been identified. Some user groups may find that they use the framework for each of these purposes. The aim of the categorisation is to support understanding of the reasons for using the framework. Some examples of how the Urban Competency Framework can be used to support assessment and recruitment are given here. So, for example, an employing organisation could use the framework to identify which competencies their team have and don't have in order to create a staff development or a recruitment plan. A learning and development provider can use the framework to assess learners as part of a learning needs assessment, and it can use it to assess progress or achievement on completion of a programme. Some examples of how the framework can be used to support competency development are given here on this slide. For example, employing organisations can plan staff development based on the framework. Individuals can use the framework to plan potential career progression pathways and find learning opportunities to help them to develop their career. Learning providers can create learning programs based on the framework, and professional institutes can offer advice to their members on learning opportunities and how the framework relates to the competencies and qualifications they already hold. The framework can also support collaboration with partners, for example, by providing an opportunity to align values and approaches, and by working together to assess and build the capacity of their staff and volunteers. In the next part of the session, we'll look at how to use the Urban Competency Framework in a specific context. The framework was designed to be broadly applicable to all urban crises, but to make it most effective, it can be further contextualised. There are numerous ways in which this can be done, and the contextualisation can be done to a greater or lesser extent. For example, domains, competencies, or behaviours can be admitted, or certain ones can be selected and applied to different roles. Additional domains, competencies, or behaviours can be added if something is considered to be essential in a specific location. Terms or expressions can be altered if alternative words are more frequently used in an organisation, location, or context, or the framework can be translated into other languages. Finally, additional information can be added. This could be in the form of examples of a situation in which a competency has been demonstrated. It could be ineffective behaviours, which could be added to help understand what a person should specifically avoid doing. Or behaviours for further types of roles could be added. When using the competency framework in practice, especially if there are multiple other requirements for posts, organisations might find that they also need to consider whether they will prioritise some competencies for specific posts, or if they want to make any essential for all employees with other competencies becoming desirable. This could be linked to a specification of which competencies need to be demonstrated at the point of recruitment, while others might be linked to staff development processes. For example, an organisation might decide that all recruits must demonstrate the competencies in the first domain, working with diverse stakeholders, but decide that they're able to build up new recruits' proficiency in competency domain 9, applying humanitarian principles in urban contexts, as long as the applicant is able to demonstrate appropriate attitudes and a willingness to learn. If staff are recruited who do not yet demonstrate all the competencies, an organisation needs to have in place systematic recruitment, monitoring processes and probationary periods to ensure that staff are supported to develop the competencies effectively. This sort of decision needs to be made in relation to the mandate, programmes and recruitment needs of the organisation, as well as in relation to the recruitment context. For example, it may be difficult to recruit people who have the whole spread of types of competencies that are required, or it may be that certain competencies are less frequently found in subpopulations, and so recruitment may inadvertently minimise the diversity profile of the organisation. In the final part of this presentation, we'll look at the Urban Competency Framework User Guide. The User Guide is available online. The link is shown here, and it can be downloaded for free. The User Guide is designed to support those who wish to use the Urban Competency Framework and provides an introduction to what the framework is and why and how it was created, an explanation of which competency types, competency domains and competencies are included, and explains why and how these were selected. It provides an explanation of the structure of the framework, general guidance on using the framework, and a toolkit of resources that can be adapted as required. The toolkit is mostly appropriate for employing organisations, although other types of users may find it helpful. Learning providers who want to use this and other competency frameworks can find extensive advice in the recently launched Humanitarian Learning Standards Handbook, which is part of HPAS and which can be found at the link provided here. There are 9 tools in the toolkit. This table, which can be found in the user guide, lists the tool and indicates what the tool can be helpful for. These are arranged into the 3 broad categories previously mentioned in order to provide clarity. For each of the 9 tools, information is provided about how the tool can be helpful, what key information to include, advice on how to use the tool, an example of each tool is provided. The example here shows a summary table provided for job descriptions. This shows you processes that the tool can help you to accomplish with notes on how to achieve this. For example, A job description can help you describe the requirements for specific posts, recruit effective and suitable people with diverse profiles, and assess individuals' competencies. This is an example of a tool that is provided. This is a competency assessment matrix which can be used to support the assessment of competencies for recruitment and to identify areas that the applicant needs to be supported in to improve. The competencies in the domain are listed and space is provided for assessors to make notes in an interview, this is the first column, during a group activity, this is the second column, and a space is provided to make an evaluation of the competency level of the applicant, this is the third column. These columns can be adjusted to suit the assessment process that is being used. This is another example of a tool that is included in the user guide. This is part of a table showing suggested competency-based interview questions. Each of the questions allows the interviewer to take the applicant through a process of demonstrating their understanding or awareness of the competency, providing an example to demonstrate their competency level, and reflecting on their level of competency. Example questions are provided in this tool for all of the competencies, and as with all of the tools, explanations of how to use them are included. Thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have any further questions about the Urban Competency Framework or the user guide, please contact RedR UK or the Global Alliance for Urban Crises.